It's often said that you can spot the warning signals before your marriage breaks down. Little fissures and fleeting moments that don't seem like much at the moment. That's what I thought too. That is, until my wife, Lisa, broke everything by staring me in the eye one evening. "What's the worst?" She spoke so nonchalantly, as if discussing the weather. The detonation that revolutionized everything. Lisa turned to face me while we were watching TV on the couch. She scrolled through her phone and added, "I've been considering doing something really important for Sarah." Her twin sister is named Sarah. Distracted, I looked at her. What kind of important thing? At last, she raised her gaze. "I'm going to be her surrogate." I initially believed her to be kidding. I waited for the punchline and partly laughed. "However, Lisa," she simply continued to gaze at me, anticipating my happiness. The moment it sank in weight, "What?" I straightened my posture. "You're going to carry their baby?" She grinned and nodded, as if this were the most commonplace thing ever. "Yeah, Sarah and Kevin have been trying for so long, and since we're identical twins, it's practically like Sarah's carrying her own child." I felt sick to my stomach. "Lisa, are you serious? When did this even come up?" She gave a shrug. "A few weeks ago. We've been talking about it for a while. We, Sarah and Lisa, not Lisa and me." I tried to take in what I had just heard as I looked at her. "And you didn't think to mention it to me?" Lisa put her phone down and sighed. "Grant, this isn't about you. It's my body, my choice. I don't need permission." Permission. I was furious when I heard that word. "Lisa, we're married. This is a huge decision, one that affects both of us. How could you not talk to me about this first?" She gave an eye roll. "I'm telling you now." I laughed resentfully. "Oh, great, now. After you've already made up your mind. That's not how marriage works." Her face grew stern. "Look, I knew you'd react like this. That's why I waited. But this is happening, Grant, whether you support me or not." And there it was. The command. Although she didn't state it directly, the meaning was obvious. Get on board or get out. The betrayal with the deepest impact. The surrogacy itself wasn't the only thing that broke me. The fact that this was planned behind my back was the reason. For weeks, perhaps months, Lisa, Sarah, and Kevin had been plotting. Nobody bothered to ask me. Nobody believed I should have a voice. And now, all I had to do was accept it. I stared at her for a while. "If you go through with this, we're done." Frustration distorted her face. "You're being so unreasonable." There was no comedy in my laughter. "I'm being unreasonable? Lisa, you're literally making a life-altering decision without even considering me. You don't think that's a problem?" Exasperated, she shook her head. "I'm doing something beautiful for my sister." "I thought you'd understand." I brushed a hand through my hair and got to my feet. "Yeah, well, I guess I don't." The instant she acknowledged my seriousness, a few months later. And you know what? She was expecting a child. One evening, Lisa told me in a cheerful voice, as if she thought I would be celebrating. I simply nodded. Okay. After that, I got up, picked up my jacket, and left the room. After 2 days, I submitted a divorce petition. The same week Lisa informed me of her plans, I got the papers prepared. I simply awaited her to demonstrate why she had picked Sarah and Kevin above me. And now, she had. She didn't think I would really go. This apparently caught everyone off guard. Lisa pretended not to see it coming, which genuinely amazes me. Was I bluffing, in her opinion? That my wife bearing another man's child will somehow make me forget about it? I explained to her exactly what would occur if she followed through on this. And now? She was brave enough to pretend to be shocked. Kevin and Sarah were no better. They attempted to convince me to stay by guilt-tripping me. As if I were some cold-blooded monster, Sarah shook her head at me. She said, "You're leaving your wife behind. She needs your support now more than ever." I laughed resentfully. "She's the one who made this choice." Not me. Always the diplomat. Kevin attempted to defuse the situation. Grant, this is a beautiful thing she's doing for us. Don't you see that? I folded my arms. Oh, I see it. I see that you two wanted a baby, and Lisa decided to carry it without even talking to me first. That's not a marriage. That's not a partnership. That's just a decision she made. And now? She gets to deal with the consequences. Sarah squinted her eyes. You vowed to stand by her no matter what. I grinned. And she vowed to respect me and not make life-changing decisions behind my back. So here we are. And that was all. The house turned into a battleground. Lisa initially pretended not to care. She continued to act as though she was superior to everyone else. One evening she declared, I don't need you. I can handle this on my own. Great, I replied. Then do that. However, as the months went by, her reality began to catch up with her. She lacked confidence. She had less self-control. The tension inside the household grew intolerable when I filed for divorce. Lisa began to act as though nothing had changed, and that I should still be concerned about her pregnancy. Or worse, as if I ought to somehow be involved. I had already mentally checked out in the interim. Why would I exert myself over someone else's pregnancy? We were splitting up because of a pregnancy, right? She made this decision. She had to deal with it now. Naturally, she didn't move out. It was difficult to find a place to stay when pregnant. She said that she wanted to remain with the children. But let's face it, for her, convenience was more important. And each and every day, she had to accept that she had destroyed everything. What's the best part? This was only the start. For as long as she believed she could manage this, she didn't know what was going to happen. Section? It must be logically cohesive, consistent, and use natural language. Keep in mind that natural language is used by Native Americans. The hardest part of betrayal, according to many, is when it occurs. The devastating knowledge that someone you care about has put something else before you. However, what is the reality? The aftermath is the toughest part. The slow, painful collapse. The times when they at last acknowledge that they have destroyed something irreparable. What about Lisa? At last, she was beginning to notice it. For this was more than just a poor argument. This battle wasn't short-lived. This was the gradual, agonizing demise of all we created together. She also had to witness it. She began making an effort to keep me around. Lisa initially pretended that she didn't require my assistance, as if she were all right, as if my departure was a passing phase. Then again, I wasn't playing games, she understood. I wasn't holding out for an apology from her. I wasn't attempting to solve it. I had no intention of remaining. And that sinking second, she evolved. She changed from being aloof and contemptuous to needy and clinging. She began behaving as though we were still a team, as if she could draw me back. However, it was too late. As I had already left the house halfway, she continued to act as though nothing had changed. She entered the kitchen one evening, as I was preparing a sandwich. She rubbed her belly and murmured, "Hey," quietly. I gave a nod. After hesitating, she grinned. "Can you feel the baby kick?" Mid-bite, I froze. Then I glanced up at her slowly. She really thought I would be interested. To make contact. To feel the baby that wasn't mine by touching her stomach. I put my dish down, gulped my food, and exhaled slowly. "Lisa," I replied cautiously, "you know that I don't care about this pregnancy?" Her expression dropped. "Grant, it's still a baby." "No," I interrupted with a stronger tone. "It's their baby, not mine. And the fact that you still expect me to care after everything? That's insane." Her mouth quivered. "I just thought. Maybe we could still," I said sharply. "Still what? Still be married? Still be together? After you made it clear that my opinion didn't matter? After you made me feel like an outsider in my own marriage? her eyes filled with tears. I didn't care, though. For this reason, she was to blame for this. This was her choice. She now had to deal with it. She at last experienced the loneliness I had. Lisa believed she was capable of handling this, that she would be able to handle this pregnancy without my presence, that she was supported by Kevin and Sarah. But the truth? It struck her hard. Sarah started being intrusive, continuously monitoring and managing everything. She was critical of Lisa's diet, sleep patterns, and self-care practices. Kevin wasn't much better. Naturally, he was appreciative, but he wasn't as involved as a true partner would be. For what reason? At the end, the infant wasn't being carried by his wife. Okay, Lisa? She was by herself. She detested every moment of it, because she realized what she had done to me for the first time. She had made important choices without consulting me, and assumed I would accept them. The same thing was being done to her now by Sarah and Kevin. She was being broken by it. She was no longer the same. As the months went by, Lisa began to appear exhausted. She was worn out. She was miserable. She was stuck in a circumstance from which she was unable to get out. She was sitting in the dark, staring at the wall, when I arrived home late one evening. I asked, leaning against the doorframe, "You okay?" She took a long time to respond. Then she whispered, in a tiny voice, "I think I made a mistake." I cocked my head. Which part? The pregnancy? The divorce? Or ruining our entire marriage for people who don't actually care about you? Her breath trembled as she pressed her eyes tight. I thought this would make me feel complete. I gave a little chuckle. And? Does it? Her face was wiped. No. I picked up a glass of water and nodded. That's rough. Hope you figure it out. Then I left, because I no longer had to deal with her regrets. At last, she realized what she had lost. Lisa assumed that I would always be present, that I would always be waiting, regardless of how often she damaged me or ignored me. However, she was mistaken. Because she drowned in sorrow for the rest of her days, I was too busy letting things go. For Sarah and Kevin, she had pushed me away, and now it was she who was pushed away. Since the moment the infant was born, she would no longer be needed by Sarah and Kevin. She would also be all by herself. She made one final attempt. She knocked on my bedroom door a few weeks later. "Grant, can we talk?" I put down my book with a sigh. "About what?" She took a deep breath. "I know things haven't been great between us, but maybe after the baby is born, we could stop." She winced. "Grant, please. I don't want to lose you." I gave her a direct look. "You already did." What about the agony that swept across her face? At that moment, I realized she understood at last. This could not be fixed. It was irreparably damaged by her. She would now have to spend the rest of her life dealing with that. This was only the start of her remorse. She believed she had sacrificed something honorable, that she was giving her sister something lovely. Now, though, she recognized it for what it was, a huge, irreparable error, one that cost her everything. And even though it might cause her pain, I had no intention of saving her from it. This was the life she desired. It was her choice. And now, she was forced to accept it. By themselves. People believe that regret strikes suddenly, because the second you make a mistake, it immediately drowns you like a wave. However, that isn't how it operates. Remorse moves slowly. It gradually seeps into the nooks and crannies of your existence, until it consumes you. What about Lisa? She was eventually overcome by regret, since the baby was on the verge of arriving. And she was beginning to understand. After it was born, she would be left with nothing. She believed that the baby would make everything better. Lisa kept telling herself that things would improve after giving birth, that it would all feel worthwhile. That maybe just possibly. I would return after witnessing her selflessness. However, she was deceiving herself, because, deep down, the truth was already known to her. Nothing would be fixed by the baby. It wouldn't repair the harm she had caused. Our marriage would not be restored by it. The fact that she had thrown everything away for individuals who didn't genuinely care about her would still remain. This pregnancy had been the focal point of her entire existence, and now she understood. She would have no purpose after the baby was born. Kevin and Sarah had finished playing nice. Sarah had been controlling and hovering over Lisa for months, acting as though she had a right to her whole life. Lisa allowed her to do so, since she believed it to be only temporary. But as the deadline drew nearer, Sarah's actual nature became apparent. She grew colder, more impatient, more demanding, less appreciative. When Lisa would get home, she would be upset and mumble about Sarah, and Kevin making all the choices without consulting her. One evening, she grumbled, "They're already planning the baby's schedule. Like I'm just some incubator." I arched an eyebrow. "Aren't you?" She twisted her face. "That's not fair, Grant." I breathed out slowly. "Lisa, this was the plan. You carry the baby, give it to them, and walk away." What did you think was going to happen? Something sparked in her eyes, fear, because she had never really considered that far in advance. She had never given much thought to what life would be like after she finished playing the hero. And now, she was coming to the realization that I would not be included. At last, she realized what she had lost. She knocked on my door one evening. "Grant, can we just talk?" I let out a sigh. "About what?" Her hand was on her stomach as she paused. I miss you." I reclined in my seat and gazed at her. "What exactly do you miss?" She took a deep breath. "I miss the way things used to be. I miss us." I cocked my head. "Lisa, we don't exist anymore." "You made sure of that." Her mouth quivered, but I thought I interrupted. "You thought what? That you could carry another man's baby, destroy our marriage, and still keep me in your life?" She turned her head away, since she was aware this is what she had done to herself. Our marriage had been destroyed by her. She was now forced to live among the ashes. The last hit. She went into labor a few weeks later. It was drawn out, uncomfortable, and draining. The whole time, Sarah and Kevin were there, worrying and hovering, but not for Lisa. All they could think about was the baby. And when did it end at last? They hardly gave her a glance. They were too enamored with their new baby. They are too busy enjoying their new family. Lisa? She was hardly mentioned in passing. When did they leave the hospital too? The infant accompanied them. Lisa returned home with nothing. The belly is empty, heartless. Then it finally dawned on them. There was nothing left for her. Never in her life had she felt so alone. There was silence in the house. No, sweetie, not a family, no husband, only her. For hours, she sat on the couch and gazed at the wall, perhaps waiting for someone to give her instructions. However, nobody was present, because everyone had been pushed away by her. Kevin and Sarah recently had their child. She was no longer needed by them. She was hardly spoken to by Ava. And me? My next step was already planned, for this was it. We were no longer connected by the last thread. And now, the moment has come for me to permanently go. After making her bed, she had to lie in it. Lisa believed that what she was doing was noble, altruistic, and significant. Now, however, she understood the reality. This was the one decision that had shaped her entire life. And it was finished now? She had nothing. And me? Never in my life have I been more certain of my choice to go. Because as she drowned in regret for the remainder of her life, at last, I was free. People believe that remorse is a one-time event, that you are knocked down by a single large wave, and that it ends there. However, that is untrue. There is more than one wave of regret. The tide is constantly tugging. What about Lisa? Every aspect of her existence was infused with regret. Because right now, at last, she got it. She had it all. She also tossed everything away. She didn't bounce back like she had hoped. Lisa assured herself she would be all right, that she will recover, that life would continue. However, life, once you've burned every bridge behind you, it doesn't just continue on, because everything changed after the baby was born. Kevin and Sarah, she was no longer needed by them. She became an afterthought after formerly being the focal point of their world. The frequency of the texts decreased. Check-ins were halted. And all of a sudden, they had lost interest in Lisa. She had fulfilled her role. They were now occupied with their family, not with her. And the loneliness really started to set in at that point. She made another attempt to get in touch, but it was too late. I received a message one evening. "Lisa, maybe we can speak?" I looked at it for a while. Then, I chose to disregard it. The following day, "Lisa, Grant, please. All I want is to see you." I grinned. Because right now, she was after me. For months, I had been pursuing her, pleading with her to stop what she was doing before it was too late. Now, though, it was too late now, she had decided. I had also made mine. At last, she acknowledged reality. A common buddy informed me that Lisa was having difficulties, that she was having trouble settling into her new life, that she was spending her nights alone, drinking more, and going out less. For wherever she looked, it brought to memory what she had lost. She was hardly spoken to by Ava. Kevin and Sarah were no longer together. And me, without her, I was already starting over. That's when it finally dawned on her. She wasn't simply unmarried. She didn't matter. For so long, she had thought she was doing something honorable, something selfless. But what had she actually done was to destroy everything she owned. For what purpose? Nothing. When I last saw her, I had been gone for more than a year, because I left the ruins of our marriage behind. Then I ran into her at a cafe one afternoon. She had changed appearance. Not too awful. Simply put, empty, like someone who has been staring back too long. She noticed me, and for a moment, her expression brightened, as if she believed this was her opportunity. Then she noticed the expression in my eyes, and she stopped smiling, since she was aware there was no possibility. "Grant," she inhaled deeply. "Lisa." She made an awkward adjustment. "You look good." I gave a nod. "I know." She gave a feeble laugh. I've been meaning to reach out." I cocked my head. "Why?" Her fingers twisted in her lap as she gulped. I miss you." I bent over. "What exactly do you miss?" Her breath caught, because she understood my true question. The security was missed by her. The stability was something she missed. She wanted to be with a man who truly cared about her. The life she tossed away was missed. However, she was unable to regain it. Because of that door, it was permanently shuttered. The second she acknowledged, she inhaled nervously. "I'm sorry, Grant, for everything." I gave a nod. "I know." Then, I got to my feet, walked by her, and departed. No rage, no bitterness, just tranquility. For Lisa's sake, she was no longer a concern for me. And her true punishment was that. The finest retaliation, people inquire as to whether I ever consider her. I'll always be curious about what might have been. And the reality? I don't. Because causing them pain isn't the best kind of retaliation. It's just going on. Because even though she lives the rest of her life regretting what she did, I'm too occupied with my life. And that is the ultimate form of retaliation.